In the last video we made this bubble content control that acts like a little pop-up, and we just placed some placeholder text in there called test for now. So now we're going to fill this out with an actual menu and bind it to the view model for the attachment button, and then do the clicks to do things. So we'll get started with that. I think the first thing we want to do is we might as well just make the view model, or part of the view model for a menu. So this is going to be one of many menus in the application. So we'll create a new folder in ViewModel specific for menus. So we've got a pop-up menu, but that's more related to the actual let's double check the bubble pop-up and alignment and things like that. It's more about the visual of the menu, so we don't want it in there. This is just purely about an actual menu, like a menu item and the text in it and the click back and things like that. So let's get started with that. We'll make a new view model and we'll call this one MenuItemViewModel. I'll get rid of the namespaces. It's a base view model. I think this has got the wrong. Why is this giving me the wrong default? Oh, did I just delete the wrong default namespace? Oh yeah, I just deleted too many. I thought it was giving me a falsetto.word namespace then, not .core, but I was just deleting too much. So it's a public class. It inherits the base view model. A view model for a menu item. So for each menu item, like a menu here, we're going to want an icon and some text. So I'll have public string name, or name's not a very good thing, so I say text. And then our menu, we want potentially to have like headers within the menu, which I don't think are in conventional menus, but like you've got a horizontal rule here, we probably want certain types maybe, and one can be a header. So let's actually do an enum for that. So that's not going to be a view model for that part, that's going to be a data model. So let's just add one called MenuItemType. This is going to be public enum MenuItemType. We will have, I guess, text and icon, which will be the standard one. Won't be a horizontal rule necessarily, because it could be any, so let's call it a divider. And then header will be another one, and we'll leave it at that for now. And then we want to use this menu item type here, call it type. I think by default it's going to work out as 0 anyway, so we could set this to default text and icon like this for all of them, but that's going to actually happen anyway by default because it's 0, so there's no need for that at the moment. I think that's it. We've just got the text, and we'll have the icon for one that does display text and icon. So again, we'll need an enum for that. So we will make another class, and this is really just icon type in general. This is an enum in core, because if you say you want let's say a folder icon, well, in core, in your application that doesn't have anything to do with UI, it's not going to have specific images right now or specific ways to show, but we need to, the application would like to say that I expect a folder icon to be displayed. So for that reason, we'll make an enum of all the icon types, and then we'll make some kind of converters or ways to convert this into something that could then be used as an icon, like the font awesome icon, for example. So we'll do, I don't even know, I can't think of one right now. We'll do, I guess, picture. What else is there? That'll be for, say, selecting a picture. Do a file. File icon. We'll leave it at that for now. We'll come back and keep expanding on this. We've got picture and a file. So icon type. We also want none, I guess, if you don't want an icon. So by default, there'll be no icon. And I think that's the menu item view model. We'll need click commands for when the menu item's clicked, but we'll come back to that after. We'll just get the basic structure done for now. So we have a menu where my view model is not. For some reason it's here. I thought I'd put it inside the menu. Menu item view model, and now we want a, I'll just copy and paste that. And I did notice the other day when I was doing something different, when I did this file rename here, it actually completely deleted my file. So I don't know whether that was a real one-off bug. Well, let me just see if this happens again. So it's okay this time. So it really took me by surprise, but I've written a class which is quite large, few hundred lines, and I just clicked the rename file and it literally deleted the whole file. That was it, the whole file was gone. So maybe be cautious if you've got any kind of big file, or do this file rename at the start of your file, or just simply manually rename the class and use this. But I did experience that bug once, so it's just something to think about. If you've got a large file, potentially don't use this rename file to the same name as class. Just manually do it in case it ends up deleting your file. So we've got menu view model, a view model for a menu itself. So this will have a list of menu item view models. Call that items. This is going to be the items in the menu. And I think that's it for now. Just got the items, simple enough. So we've got the two view models. Next thing will be, what shall we do next? I think we'll make the actual items control now. So we'll want a new control in here. Again, we'll do menus. And we'll make a new user control, and we'll just call this vertical menu. We'll get rid of the surplus controls menu namespaces. Get rid of all the unused namespaces. And then let's just build to make sure everything still builds. There we go. And what is next? Okay, let's start with, we don't want a grid. We want an items control here, which is going to be the menu itself. So we've got an items control. Now we want to style this, so items control template, and then that is a data template, I think. Oh, okay, maybe not. Oh no, item template. You want to style the items within it. Then your data template. So this is item template. So in here, this is going to be per item. So actually what we want to do is, let's just do something really simple for the moment. Text block, text as test. And now let's bind this to, this is where we need a design model. So we go back to the menu, add another folder called design, and then another class, and this would be menu item design model. Design menu. Design model. And this is going to go over the MenuItemViewModel. And now let's just make sure we do the same kind of comment that we've done for the others. So copy that, paste that, the design time data 4, and then that. And we could do in the constructor, what do we have in the text equals hello world. Icon equals, we'll do file, and we don't want a header for now, so that's for the single menu item. As we come to design, or if we even do design the menu item as a mini control. And then we want the copy and paste this class. Rename it to menu design model. Rename the file. It's going to be the menu view model. And then in here we're going to have items equals new array. And we want new menu item view model. We're going to have, say, a header first with text of attach your file. What's wrong with this? This one's a list. So a new list of these, and then we have one there. Then the other types are, which we shouldn't need to specify, but we'll just do it for clarity. Or in fact, let's just prove it doesn't need to be done. Let's just do normal text. This will be from computer with an icon of file. And we'll do another one from pictures. And that will do for there. So that's some design data we should be able to bind to. We need to make this an actual design model though. Nearly forgot about that bit. So we just want to copy and paste the singleton part of the class. Paste it in. And just make it an instance of itself. Copy that to the menu item one as well. And that's the design model. And so now we should be able to bind to this menu design model. let's go back to this items control and let's do a data context. And for now, I'm just going to run. We can do. Let's just do the data context. So not the design time data context only. We'll just bind it to the full data context for the moment, so we can actually open up the application and see it until we get to the point of creating the real data anyway. So we're just going to bind the data context directly to the design time model, which would usually be only for design time. So I think that's how we do that. Again, no, it isn't. We have to have core there, don't we? And we have to then specify that it's in core. And I think that's it. So that probably just needs compiling. There we go. So I can't see anything there, but let me just make the background. So that's apparently the data. Oh yeah, so we've got the data context of the menu. And we don't want menu item, we want menu design model. And then we need the item source from that to be bound to the items value. And there we go. So now we have 3 items. So we know we've at least bound to the data now. Background for now. Let's just do white for the moment, just so we can see what's happening. So now we're down to each item. So we want basically something very similar to this, an icon and some text, and then we'll make it nice and visual. So we'll start with a grid, we'll do a background with the foreground light brush, which is white, and then inside here I think we'll do, because we have to support the header style, the divider style, the menu item style. So what I'm going to do is use this grid to have all 3 elements in, and each of them's visibility is bound to the menu type enum. So only one's displayed at a time, and then we can basically create one now and then make sure it works, then create the other style and start hiding them. So you'll see as it goes. So this one I'm going to make is going to be the text and icon style. So for that we'll start with a border with a background of the foreground light brush. So in fact we don't need that on the whole grid, because that's going to contain all the different styles. So this specific one is going to have the background white. I think we want we probably want rounded corners on each menu item, because it's inside a rounded bubble as well to keep it similar. So we'll do a corner radius of I guess about maybe 8 for now, something like that. This is also a menu item, so it's like when you hover over the menu. I don't know whether you want a clicky arrow style, like when you click a link. I'm trying to think where we'd get that in here. But if you wanted, like that. So if you want it showing like a hand as a link, you could just add like a cursor here of hand, like that. So I'm going to leave that out for now though. And then the text inside this, that'll do for the moment. We'll come back and see how this builds up after. So we'll go inside the border, and then we'll do I think just text maybe. So I think a text block is probably going to be enough. Oh no, we'll need a grid because we need the icon as well. So let's do a grid. We'll need 2 columns. So the column definitions, width of the first one where the icon's going to be is going to be auto, and then the other one's going to take up the remaining space. And then this is going to be the menu item grid container for text and icon. So then we can do the text block for the icon, because we're going to use font awesome. we're going to give this a name of icon, because we're going to do some triggers on hover to change colors of the text and the icon in the background. So we'll probably need to name this back. No, we'll put the trigger on the actual border itself. So text block with a name of icon, font family is font static resource font awesome. Then we want I'm trying to think now. Let's just do text for the moment. Chat icon. Let's just get something appearing so we can try and visualize this. So there we go, got like an icon. That will want some padding by the looks of it. Let's give a nice little bit of padding around the item. Let's just remove this width and height from the designer as well, so this just scales to size. And zoom in here a little bit. So there's our current items, so that's fine for now. Because we were going to bind you're going to bind this text to a value converter and things. The black's a bit harsh. Let's just change that foreground for the moment. We'll do I don't know, foreground dark. We need to name these nicer, but foreground dark brush. There we go. So just a nice gentle colour, not too harsh. This is the icon. I want the main text. It's just going to be a text block again. Call this text. And we want the grid.column1. And the text, and to be honest, that's easy enough to just bind straight to the text, so we get the actual text. And there we go. There's the text, and these are misaligned, so we need to vertically align these. So they always stay in alignment. I guess this needs a bit of a margin on the left and right. So that looks a bit better. So we have a vertical menu appear. It's certainly not ideal yet, and we haven't got any kind of hover effects or any click or anything, but let's try and now at least put this vertical menu into the actual chat page. So in there we had this attachment pop-up, which is a bubble content with a data context of attachment menu. So, oh, didn't want to do that. Started the application, just gotta wait for that to build and close it down again. There we go. So we need to change this attachment menu, which of course we can't navigate to. So this is a chat attachment pop-up menu view model that we've bound to base pop-up menu view model, and this is where we need to get to. How do we boil this down to the content inside? So we've got bubble content, and it needs to be part of this attachment menu. So that was what we were going to do. We're going to make this bubble content aware of specific types, and then we'll inject a vertical menu as a type. So, trying to think of the best way to do this. Or do we completely separate attach menu? So this is a pop-up menu. So in here, realistically, we'd want to have the menu itself, the vertical menu, but we don't want to be limited to, or rather not vertical menu, oh there we go, that's why. We bind it to the menu design model, because that's the base view model. So we want to add this view menu view model here. So we will have, and then we can always make different types of menu view model UIs like this vertical menu, but in essence it's always going to be a menu, so we'll always make it conform to this menu view model. So let's do that as the menu for this. Oh, and actually this needs to go into the base pop-up menu. Menu for this pop-up menu. That's going to go. So now we can bind to the menu in chat attachment. We shouldn't have deleted that. In here, we could then actually, on a new property, in the constructor, again, this could be loaded from anywhere. But I guess now this is the time where you'd say the menu is a new menu, and the items are new list of items. It's a new array. It's a new menu item view model. Text equals attach the files. This is where the real data would come in. And what's wrong with this? There we go. So this is the point where this is the actual specific chat attachment pop-up menu view model, and this is where we did, create the real info. Whereas right now we have the design time menu for any kind of menu. We've got the exact same thing, so let's just convert this to design time header and menu item 1, menu item 2, and then we can easily distinguish between a design model and the real data, and then when we change where, if we want to, change what the attachment menu does and where it goes, then we've got access to it here. So this will be from computer, from pictures, and then we can also quickly jump back to vertical menu, and we can do a design time data to that, and the real data, if we compile now, that should change. I don't know if it'll build, we might be in the middle of code that doesn't build at the moment. There we go, so you've got design time header, and then the actual data context will need to come from, let's see, oh, this will then be, this is just a vertical menu, so yeah, we'll build up to attaching back to this real view model afterwards. So there's the view model for chat attachment. By default is having these things for now. Now let's try and get back to where we were. We'll try and remember where I even was. And we were doing control minus and step back. Let's try and remember where I was and what I was doing before we started this bit. We're trying to bind, oh, I know where we were. We were in the, come on, Visual Studio, there we go. We're in the actual, here, this bubble content, and trying to figure out how to bind the inner content. So now the bubble content is got a data context of attachment menu. So in our attachment menu, it's actually this correct type already, but this is a base type of this. So we can now get access to the menu because we're bound to effectively the menu. But the bubble content control here is going to have, instead of just this here, we need to have a almost a generic, I don't know whether I have like a generic user content, I think, or content control, with the content going through a value converter that finds specific content. I'm going to do that. So we're going to have a content control with the content being bound to the attachment, in this case attachment menu. That's not very good. No, we're bound to the attachment menu already, so it's the actual thing itself. So we should just be able to bind to whatever we're actually bound to as a whole. But that's going to be bubble background. That's actually always going to be the bubble content view model, I think. Let's have a look again. Attachment menu. No, it isn't. Oh, are we not using this? Do we not use this bubble content? Where did I see that bubble content? Or is it in base pop-up menu? Yeah, so we're going to always be bound to a base pop-up menu view model. Yeah, that's right. So base pop-up menu view model, and that's always going to have menu, I believe. So, oh yeah, so at the moment, yeah, that's correct. So really, we've named this base pop-up menu view model, but then we're using this bubble content as effectively only ever a, we called it pop-up menu, which is the confusing part. Let's just rename this to base pop-up view model, because it's not necessarily going to be a menu contained in there. There's no need for it to be specifically a menu. And that's where I'm getting confused because of the naming convention. So a base pop-up view model, but then we're bound here to a menu view model. So I think this needs to just be, this menu needs to be content, and to be honest, this just wants to be a base view model. So the content inside of this pop-up menu. So now we have a completely generic, it's going to be a view model, because that's just how it's working, and it's of any kind, so it's called content. Then when we make the specific chat attachment one, we set the content to this menu view model. So what we're going to do then is this pop-up content now is always bound to a pop-up menu view model, and we're going to bind it to the content. So now we're binding the content to there, and we want the converter to be a new converter. And then this is actually going to be really powerful on how it will work, if it works the same as it does in my head. But let's just copy and paste this, and this is going to be think of a name for this. So this is specific to the pop-up. There's going to be a pop-up content converter. That's a really simple name. Pop-up content converter. A converter that takes in a base view model and returns the specific, help me think this through more. Actually, do we need a converter at this point? Oh yeah, we need and returns a specific UI control that should bind to that type of view model. So what we're going to do here is switch between, or rather not switch, so simply do if value is, and then a chat attachment pop-up view model. So if it's the type of a chat attachment, we know in this UI and in this content we want to return a new vertical menu with the data context set to the value, I think. Otherwise, just return null for now. And I think this is right. So pop-up content converter. Then content controls here. The converter is then content converter. And what are you going to complain at now? Pop-up content converter does not. Yes, it does. It just needs building. Right. So that was a big rabbit hole to go down. So I guess maybe let's start at the top again. So we have a bubble content which has a data context of attachment menu, and that attachment menu is set here to a new attachment menu. So that's going to have the chat attachment menu, which is what we want, and that's also going to have the content. So we're going to have the data. So the data context of the bubble content is definitely bound. Let's just rename this class as well. Yeah, there we are. So this data context of bubble content is definitely going to have the right information. So in the bubble content, we have all this. We have a content control that should be bound to what will then be the chat attachment pop-up menu and its content, which in here is there. So the name's right, the content's also set here. So now we should have a user content control that's going to get set to this content, so a MenuViewModel, which is actually where we've done something wrong here in a way. So the content is a MenuViewModel, not the parent. So I don't think we want to bind to we don't want to bind to the content. We want the overall type, so we know which type it is, like chat attachment. And then in the value converter, we want to check if the type is this as content. Oh, not as, just the name. There we go. So if the value is a chat attachment pop-up menu, we'll call it content, and then we'll bind the vertical menu to the content's content, if that makes sense. So we've bound to the master pop-up view model and checked if it's this type, and if it is, then we bind to this type's content. So we should call it base pop-up, really. So if that is a base pop-up of this type, then bind to this content. So that should fix that. So then we have a content control that's bound to the correct thing, which is all of it, and it should effectively return a vertical menu, and the vertical menu then will be bound to a MenuViewModel. So we should be able to then bind to items in the vertical menu, which we do, and then we should at least bind to text. So all that put together, this would be really impressive if it just builds and works. Right, so if we click this, oh, and there you go, it actually does. So it's bound to the data. We've obviously got some UI issues here. I think we set the height and width specifically, and we've got no hover, but that's actually bound completely to our MenuViewModel. That's a complete view model binding of a generic pop-up, which can now contain anything at all. So we can literally make new content, new styles. We could have a picture in here and simply bind to a base pop-up, and now we've got a completely universal pop-up control that can be of any content type. So let's just fix the width and height thing from bubble content. which I think we must have set explicitly. Yeah, let's just get rid of those now. And we'll also get rid of the designer width and height afterwards. So there we go. So now we've got this menu, which I think looks nice. We need to do the multiple styles for the attach a file. And we also need to do some hover effects, and then some click effects to do things, and then some clicking away to close. So there's a bit to go, but that's already really nice. Now we've got a menu that, you know, is all from ViewModel binding. Let's just remove that height. Right, what's next? So vertical menu shows design time, bubble content shows, it even shows there. So actually everything is working at design time as well. So back to the actual vertical menu now. Let's add some, let's add a header and bind the visibility. So at least we have a header, then we'll finish off with the styles after. So we'll get the, what we do for the header. We'll just want another grid, I'm thinking. So this will be header, and only one of these will be visible at the same time. But we'll just do, yeah, grid. Do a text block for the content, and that should just be bound to the text, which we won't see. So let's just make this invisible for the moment. So there we go. So now this is the header showing. So we have a text block with the text there. We want that to be smaller for the header. Static resort, no, not font family, font. Oh yeah, you have to do font family. Let's go thicker but smaller. Small. Oh, doesn't seem to be changing anything. I'm sure that's that should be smaller because by default it's regular. I think it's just visually not showing right. So I'm going to leave that as small for the moment because I'm sure that will go smaller. Need a little bit of padding. So I don't think we want anything on the left for the header. We want to keep that away. We'll have a little bit on the top. The right we'll want padding at the right, padding at the bottom, because what we're going to do is have like a line that extends across to fill, you know, the remaining space. So you'll see that in a moment. Background again will want to be the foreground light colour. Then we will want, the only reason we're using a grid here is to do two things in the same, so we can do like an underline that, or rather a line through the middle that just carries on after the fact. So we'll want to align this to the left, and that will do for the moment. We'll finish that afterwards. This will be the header text, and then we'll have header line. It's just going to be a border with a height of half a unit and a background of the same dark brush. And there you can see we have the line through. We also want to make this foreground the same. Dark brush. And then now we want simply to put, that's why we give this a background, the text white. All we need to do now is shift the Z. You can either do the Z index or simply move this, the header line above, whichever. So I like to avoid Z index as much as possible and just simply place that first. And now you can see that whichever, if this was the largest text in the whole menu, then you wouldn't see any. But then if you've got, you know, a menu containing multiple tiles and these are small, we'll just add this little line just as an effect, just so it looks visually nice. So I think that will do for this. We now just need to make sure the whole thing is visible only at the right time and flop between these two things. So we need another converter, so visibility is bound to, and we are bound to a menu design model, so a menu view model, and it is the menu item type, and it's called type. Oh, wrong keyboard shortcut then. So this is going to be type, and we want a converter again, and this will be menu item type to visibility converter. And the parameter I think we will use as the thing, if you will, the matching name. So we're going to take the parameter as, if there's no parameter for one, then we will simply return collapsed, completely invisible. Otherwise, or rather, instead of it is null, if parameter is menu, no, it's not going to be that, it's going to be a string. Yeah, so actually leave it as null. If we have no parameter, return invisible. Try and convert parameter string to enum. So enum.try parse the parameter as string, the out menu, I'm sure it's menu item type. So if we fail to convert, then again return visibility.collapsed. Otherwise we have a menu type based on the parameter, and then we oh yeah, the type's the same. Yeah, so now we check the type with the value. So then basically if the value as menu item type, so that the actual value we're bound to equals, can we not do as? Oh no, we can't, because it's a non-nullable, so we simply have to do this. So the value is equal to the type we just created, or in that case we actually simply return that. So return, if it equals that, then visibility dot visible, otherwise it's completely collapsed and out of the way. Return visible if the parameter matches the type. So all that's going to do is we've bound to the type, which is the menu view model, I keep doing that, menu item view model type. So it's whatever we set, which here we set the type. So it's going to be bound to this. So that's what the value is going to come in at. Header, or by default it should be text and icon. And then in the converter, we pass in, so let's do the converter first. In the converter we then pass in a converter parameter, and this is going to match like there is header. So it's going to take the string of the parameter, and it's going to try and convert that string into a menu item type enum, which it should succeed because we've typed header and the word's header there. And then we simply check if the value that we're currently set at is the same, we're visible. So that means now if we set one to header and the other to this text and icon. So we set that to there, and I don't know what that's complaining at. Probably just needs building again, saying it can't find it. Header to that, and this one to text and icon. Then I think once it's built, we should have the header showing for the header icon. Specific cast is not valid. Boolean to visibility converter. Why has that failed all of a sudden? Oh, hang on a minute. I know why. We forgot to replace this part. So that's the type it is. A converter takes in a and returns a visibility based on the given parameter being the same. Menu item type. And then we need to rename this file as well. So there we go, that's actually worked. We seem to have a bit, oh no, the border's about the same top and bottom, but this, yeah, it's alright. Just a style, I don't know, we just remove that line to be honest. But we'll keep it in for now. I just think that's got slightly too much of a border around this bubble content. Looking at that, let's just reduce that. Padding of say 10, and let's see what that looks like. A little bit more. So not as much as 15. 10's too much, so 12's okay there. So there we go, I think that looks okay. Now we just need to add the actual hover effects and click effects. And the other thing I mentioned before about this pop-up, we've made this pop-up so we've placed this exactly where we want, and it gives us more control of position and what we want to do. And we can also now move around and do things without this just instantly closing like a context menu would. Like if you right click, you can't do anything without that menu closing. Whereas if we've got, say, this pop-up, we might want to hover around here or look around, or do something else like click here and carry on typing without that just instantly closing. So we made this pop-up ourselves. It's not based on any kind of pop-up class that exists in WPF. We simply made it. But what you might want is, because this is popping up inside this area, the chat, users might expect the experience of, if that pops up, they go, oh, get rid. A natural response is to click around it. So not necessarily here, but in this area they might want to close this menu. So we'll just go and quickly add that ability to show you, and that's something else that's then out the way and done. So what we're going to do is, in the chat page where the menu is, so we've got the attachment pop up and it's in this grid, the top two areas where it's all blue when it's in the actual page. We're going to add an overlay inside there that's only visible when the menu is visible, and bind a click to it that then hides the menu. So here, and we can use this as a universal overlay for any pop-ups inside the grid, so we'll just call this pop-up overlay, and it just wants to be a border. Background of transparent, well, we'll make the background red so you can see it this time, and then we'll hide it afterwards, but you need to specify a background for the click event to work. So we're going to have a row span that's going to span over 2, and there you can see that's where the red is. And I think we just want, well, that'll actually do. We obviously sort the visibility out at the moment. Well, I can do the visibility now actually. So the visibility will be bound to the Same one as this, really. Be bound to the attachment menu visible. Well, again, if this was to be used for more than one pop-up, the visibility would then be bound to another property you specify, which actually, let's just specify that now. Might as well. And then it's ready for future use. So we have attachment menu visible. Let's make any pop-up visible, and that is right now attachment menu visible. So basically exactly the same. So true if any pop-up menus are visible, and then we can just change this to attachment menu visible, or some other menu visible, and you can have then this bound. So if any pop-up menu is visible, this background will be visible. So we called that any pop-up visible. So we'll bind to that. Converter is simple boolean to visibility converter, and it might be back to front, but let's just quickly run that and see which way around it is. So that's the wrong way around. So let's just pass in the parameter to flip that around. So that will go the opposite way. So now that will only be visible when the pop-up's visible. We then want to do border.input binding, which is a new thing we haven't done. But these are really useful. You can bind to keys, you can bind to mice, and this is a way to bind commands, actions in your view models, with any kind of event. So we'll do a mouse binding with a mouse action of left, I think it's left button. Or left, no, I think it's left click, and then the command, just like a button then, we want to now bind to a specific command. So we will want to make another command, which we have command already there, attachment button command. So we want pop-up call it pop-up click away command, and the command for when the area outside of any pop-up is clicked. And we possibly want to, well no, we won't know what's, yeah, that's it, just that. We don't need any parameters. Then we'll make the pop-up click away command go to pop-up click away. Just call it pop-up click away. Copy and paste that one. Ooh. What the? When the pop-up click away area is clicked, hide any pop-ups. So for now we simply set the attachment menu, and then as we add more menus we can obviously add to this and just simply set the rest to hidden. So now we just bind to this command, and now when we click in that background, which will be red at the moment just so it's really obvious to us, we should be able to hide the menu. And it won't, it'll actually do, yeah, it'll do everywhere because it's going to pop up, but then you can see you can click away to hide the menu. Now the other issue we're going to have is, notice when we click here, it's not hiding when you're clicking on existing content. It's only when you click away where there's no content. So to change that behavior, and that's why it's helpful to just make the background red initially, so you can see it really easily. This is sitting on the same row as these two things, so we simply want to then use the Z index to push that above everything else, so it sits on top of, and it won't be red, obviously it'll be transparent, so it just means nothing's clickable while the menus are up, if that's what you want. So you click up like that and effectively everything disappears, including, though, you notice our menu. So we need to also then make sure our attachment pop-up menu is Z index 2, so it's above the background cover. So there's now like three forced layers. So all this content's on layer 0. When you click, the red's on layer 1 and the pop-up's on layer 2, so it's above. You can actually see it's become higher than this menu, and you're actually getting a little bit of the shadow overlaying. So if you don't want that, which you don't want, then you want to make this layer 3, because the other issue now as well is this menu is above this, so when we now hide it and the menu's just slid down, it's effectively down here, and now you can see I can't click anywhere because I can click over here, but here is basically where this attachment menu now is. What it's happened is it's slid down with the margin going minus, but it's now sitting above here invisibly, but above, and it's stopping us clicking through. So we now also want to jump this grid, which is on row 2, Z index to 3. So we're just setting all the Z index, the depth layers correctly, which is something that it's one of the reasons why I don't like using Z index, but in this instance that's what you do. So now we have, you can click anywhere. So finally, let's just remove that red, and you can see the final result of where's the red gone? Pop-up overlay now becomes transparent, and now we should have this sort of click away hide type feature, and then you can simply just delete that overlay if you don't want that feature. But now we've got a pop-up menu that acts a bit more like you'd expect, or you can do what you like, but that just shows how you can use something completely different to be able to click away. And then you can click over here fine, because we haven't told it to do anything there. You can also maximize and minimize, and it doesn't disappear like a normal context menu would. Like if we right click there, now we try and maximize, no matter what you do, context menus instantly disappear. So this is more robust for what we need, but also has the expected behavior. So I think the last thing we'll do now is just get some hover effects on these menu items, and then we'll see what time's like, because we don't want the video to drag too long, but then we'll add the click events to do things, or we'll potentially move that off to the next video. So let's get started and see how long it takes. So we have closed the app, closed the converter, vertical menu. We need to rename this file still. And we want to be in, it'll be vertical menu, and it'll be this specific, not the headers, it'll be the menu items that we want to now add the hover effects to on the border. So we want to do in the main menu item border.triggers, and then we'll start with an event trigger, because we're going to do a storyboard for the mouse enter. We're going to begin a storyboard. I'm going to do color animation to blue on the hover. And we want it to be duration of no hours, no minutes, and seconds of I think very short. You don't want too much of a slow delay on. Menus don't typically have any kind of animation that's instant, so we'll give it a tiny duration for now of 0.05 seconds, and see if we even want an animation. But we'll leave it in a storyboard so you can choose, and then if we don't want animation, we'll just set it to 0. In fact, we'll move these down. So the storyboard target property is going to be the background.color, and the that will be, oh, we're on the border itself, so that's like setting this background to blue, like that. And then that's on mouse enter. So this is hover over blue. Copy and paste the whole thing. Hover out. Just revert it back to what it was basically. Which will be foreground light. On menu leave. I think that's enough just to get the hover effect going. And then we'll obviously have to change the text, which doesn't look right, but let's see what that's like. So you can see there, and you can't even see the animation. So you could slow it down and add animation. Also this font, now its font's about right, but we need padding there more. So one thing we need is probably a bit of padding there of 5 maybe. And then we obviously want to style the colour of the that's better. So now let's change this to both of these to white, I think, and let's just add the animation in, but I've got a feeling we'll simply not do the animation. But let's see, 0.2 seconds. And that's a colour animation there, and we want the same again. Two more, well, start with one more. This will be foreground light, so it's the white colour. And it's going to be the foreground colour. And this time we're going to have storyboard.target name, and that's why we named these icon and text before. So this one's icon. And then the same again for the text. And then all that again for when you're leaving, to revert back to the original colours, which are different. So the original for the icon is foreground dark, and the original for the text is just the default, which will be, in fact, can we just remove that then? No. Or maybe you can, maybe just do from, I think, is where we said we could do this, just from whatever it was. Might even be able to do it there as well, just from foreground light, to simply reverse the animation. Oh no, the issue with that was, if you force I do this every single time, but if you force a from, that's fine, it'll revert back to what it was, but it'll start the animation from dark, even if it's never fully faded to the original colour, sort of thing. So you want to use a to explicitly. So that's going to go foreground dark, and this is foreground very dark, I guess, as the black, which we should really then explicitly set the colour here. So foreground very dark. So I think that should give us the animation we're after. So that's nice. This font wants to be probably bolder. I'd say that's a bit thin. And the hover, I think that's a little bit overkill. So I think that's where you can start trying to do too many things in animation, like everything's animating. I don't think the menu items need animation myself. I think we'll just remove the animation for now. So we'll just set those to 0 everywhere. And then finally we want to set this font family to Later regular now. Later. I think I think regulars fine. I think this, it doesn't really display the fonts correctly, I don't think, in the design time. Because see, there you go, the font's now bold. So I noticed that with this. See how this text is smaller as well? So there's some issue with design time displaying fonts, because that's clearly not displaying the correct font. So kind of take this little bit with a pinch of salt and just run the application to see the actual result. So I think that's okay for the hover of the menu now. The last thing we wanted to do, actually, I just noticed, is the icons aren't anything to do with the specific icons. So right now we have a where did we put it? In styles. So in styles we have fonts, and then we've done this inside of this XAML style. This is something we eventually want to move out to core. Same with all these styles and sizes. These don't really want to be in this application. These want to be in the core inside of a view model. So we'll make a little mini start on moving these out for now, just so you get the feel for what's going to happen. So in core, we've got the data model of icon type, and we sort of want to convert that to, you're not necessarily always going to use Font Awesome, but it's certainly going to be potentially used in more than one place. So we're going to put it in core, and we're going to do a converter that simply converts the icon type to the Font Awesome string value, this exact string value. So I'm just trying to think where we'll put that. We'll probably put that in almost like a value converter in core, but it's not an actual value converter like, you know, in WPF. It's not the same concept. So I think this is more along the lines of in a larger project, you'd move this out to its own module and have it as like a media or a kind of you know, a converter project. But for in here, let's put it in. I don't know whether to put it in font specifically or probably overthinking this just for the name in a folder, but it's going to be a converter for data types. I don't know whether to actually just call it value converters. No, let's call it so I'll just call it icons for now. We can always rename it later. I can't really think of a name. And then in here we will do icon type to Font Awesome, and this will be public static class converts C icon type to a Font Awesome string. Public static string, and we can do an extension method here to overload a icon type, which is what we'll do, and we'll call it to Font Awesome. Well, this icon type convert, and that's basically the same. Actually, that's the statement for this one. Keep hitting the wrong keys on this keyboard. And this is the overall class, so helper functions for icon type. So actually this class can be renamed to icon type extensions, which is now more accurate. And we'll rename the file. And now to Font Awesome. So now we just simply do a switch on the type. The default, we return null. Otherwise, the case of file, we return a certain string. Case of picture, return another string. So return a Font Awesome string based on the icon type. And you can change this default behavior to return something different, but for now, file and picture. Do we have anything for file and picture? We got a picture there, that'll do for that. And the file we don't have. But the thing is, I think I remember that it's, this is quite sad when you remember codes as well. I think it's just F6. I think there's a few. I think there's a F6. I think there's F6 and 16, if I remember rightly, that are, there's a lot of different file icons. Let's try that for now anyway. You can just look at Font Awesome cheat sheet anyway if you want to find the icon, but I'm being lazy today. So now we want to make use of this to Font Awesome. So if we go back to the icon, the text is now set there. Instead, this now wants to be binding to icon with a converter that we now need to make. And in value converters, copy and paste that one. Icon type to Font Awesome converter. Make sure that goes in there. Converter that takes in a icon type and returns the Font Awesome string for that icon. So we have the type equals icon type of value, and in fact we don't even need to do that. We can simply say return icon type value dot to Font Awesome, and that will return the Font Awesome string, and the converter becomes that converter, and that's it. So if all that works, we should now have, yeah, that didn't quite work. Nearly. I mean, we can try that, but we might have to return that as Unicode specifically. Yeah, so even though we can set it specifically there, what's happening now is it's returning the actual string, like a true string value, as opposed, luckily in the styles here, specifying a string this way was a way to specify this hexadecimal. So we just need to specify that differently in the C# string, and I think we just do that with, because all this is doing is this is a XML specific flag for a Unicode value, and I think the C# one is just \U for Unicode, I think. So let's see if that works. Could have just seen that in the designer, but never mind. And there we kind of go, and then we remove the semicolon. So it's the same value, which the value is this part here, but in XML you have to do and hash, or and pound for the Americans, and then end with a semicolon, and the value sits in the middle. But if you're declaring it in C#, then it's just you use this escape \U, and then you can specify the Unicode value. So now we have a converter that converts icon types to specific icons, and then we can expand on that and move everything out of XAML eventually. And then we have the hover effect, which I think looks nice and cool. So the last step there really is to now add, when you click this, something actually happens, and then the menu potentially closes as well. So I think I'll leave that for another video, because that won't take long. And then what I'm going to do next is, I think maybe a pop-up. The one thing this application's missing right now is when you click and do something, say there's just a, not necessarily for this, because you're going to click this and it's going to browse for the computer, which is easy to do. But say you clicked it and it was there was an error, or you wanted to just display a message. We need like a general pop-up box, and we don't want to use the normal Windows, you know, the nasty looking message box. It doesn't blend with this application. This is all nice and modern and clean. We don't want to a horrible looking grey square message box. So we might do a message box that pops up in the application next, including, you know, clicking this and then maybe just popping up that message box to show. And then a few of you want to see the settings page done as well, and because this is going to take so long to keep going through and doing so much of, because we've got this menu to do, we've got the search to do, we've got the emojis, which is going to be huge, we've got picture messages inside. That, you know, this is going to be the focus, as I keep mentioning, of most of the videos, because there's so much to do here. Some of you want to, you know, do your own applications and get going, and the settings page is like a big part of that. So I might move on to settings pages in a few videos. That's going to involve Entity Framework, so I figured we might as well jump into Entity Framework now, and that'll be a new video series. And if we do the settings page, where you're actually storing information, we're going to then end up using Entity Framework and SQL Server Compact probably for storing the information. So that would, even though it would be working on this application, I'd break the videos up so the parts focusing on the database are in a new series for Entity Framework, which will be nice to, you know, for other people then to get like a new series started than just WPF. So I'll probably move on to this settings page shortly after a few more videos on this menu. But again, any feedback, any comments, anything you'd like to see, just leave a comment in the video and I'll get back to you.